Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Kingdom REI podcast. This is your boy, Cameron. Roy Ellis had a quick last-minute trip to Los Angeles, and he is driving, so it is just me today. I'll be driving the ship, and hopefully I don't steer us into any sand barges, and it's smooth sailing along the way. Got a cool guest on today. Sounds just like he's got a lot of passion for the gifts God has given him, how to utilize them, maximize them to build people up. He specifically focuses in real estate. He's the founder of a company called VareCO. His name is Terrance Doyle. Terrance, how you doing, brother?
I'm super, man. Cameron, thanks for having me on.
Yes, we are glad to have you here and get to know you a little bit more. Before we get going, you mind if I pray right quick?
Yeah, love it.
Cool, Lord. Thank you for today. Thanks for an opportunity to get to know a new brother in the faith, in the business world, just to give him a chance to tell his story, how you've impacted his life, how you've led him to do what he's doing with his hands, his time, his talent, God, to impact people, make them better. And I just pray that this conversation would be uplifting and helpful to those listening. And we walk away feeling refreshed, encouraged, and challenged. We love you, Lord, and pray this in Christ's name. Amen. So I don't really know you that well, like I just talking about. And I don't know how many of our guests know you. So why don't you give us the 30,000 foot view of who Terrance Doyle is?
Well, thanks for having me on. And I'm a big fan of, what you and Ellis do. And, I think I've been following Ellis on LinkedIn, for quite some time, and just love his post on real estate and how he's able to weave his faith into that. And I think just be really, outspoken about what he thinks is the most important thing in life, which is his faith. And so I'm just a big fan of what you guys are doing, and want to be able to encourage you guys, support you guys, and in any way that I can. So thanks for having me on, and I love the work you guys are doing. High level, I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, so very blue collar, Midwest. I like to think Des Moines is one of the best places to grow up, but maybe not like the best place to live like after college. Not like no sports teams and not a lot of exciting things going on, although they might be changing that now. But amazing place to grow up. Very conservative. I grew up, my mom was an exchange student from Bogota, Colombia. English was her second language. She was an immigrant. My dad was an immigrant from Canada. They actually met in college. My dad was a hockey player. My mom was really good at homework. And so they found ways to help, they found a natural connection there with my mom was really good with schoolwork and my dad was not. So that was, they got married young. My dad did not finish college. And my mom never really worked, like had a career. Her passion really was her faith and really teaching us. So I was homeschooled from a young age, and really grew up spending half the year in Colombia from the time I was maybe like third or fourth grade. So I would spend like 4 to 6 months in Colombia and go to school, spend time with my grandparents, and then 4 to 6 months being homeschooled in the United States. And that was really all I knew, and I loved it, and it was amazing. I think I developed a really great foundation there of just the fundamentals of like reading, writing, and math. And then also like in faith, everything that we studied academically, we would circle back to the Bible of like, where did it all come from? Like how, everything would always come back to what does God's word say? What does the Bible say about this particular topic? That's the way I was raised, and that's all I knew. And, I went to a private Christian high school after that, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play basketball after high school. And so I went to a school in Arkansas called John Brown University. And, I really just went JBU. That's right. Yeah. Most people, I guess if you're from Texas, you would know that. Yeah. A lot of my teammates were from Dallas, Fort Worth, actually. Dallas and Oklahoma. And and it was an amazing experience. I mean, great school. We had a really good basketball team, and we had 10 incoming freshmen. And, so I got really close with 3 or 4 of the guys, and became like accountability partners. And so not only were we playing basketball together, we were studying together, we were going through like, what does it look like to be single, and what does it look like to want to be married and have a family, and all these things that just had really rich conversations about, I think, meaningful topics in life. What does it look like to want to be successful and make a lot of money? What does it look like to maybe want to be in ministry? Or what does it look like to be a faithful husband? And what does it look like to date according to the Bible? All these really interesting topics that, I think when you're at a Christian university with a curfew and with segregated dorms, like male and female, it's like, all right, those things become more, I think, highlighted. So I had a great experience there. My minor was youth ministry. So I really thought that I was going to go into youth ministry, and my major was finance and accounting. And so that was, that was my background in education. And we started a nonprofit organization in college called Crossover Ministries. And, it was similar to Athletes in Action, where we were taking college basketball players to Europe in the summer. We would put on camps for kids during the day. So think like Germany, outside Berlin, they'd have a basketball club. We would come in there as the American college basketball players, put on a camp for the kids, and then at night play against professional teams from teams around Germany. So it was a great way to like share your faith as well as play against really, really good competition. And
So
a lot of the
fun.
guys, it was amazing. Yeah, we had a great run. And so that was like, we were freshmen in college, and a couple of my buddies were juniors and seniors. It was their kind of vision. And I came alongside, and, we grew it, and that was our passion. And so when they graduated, they moved to Denver. And then I was able to transfer my senior year, get a scholarship at Colorado Christian University in Denver. And then really with the goal of growing that organization and that ministry. And our thinking at the time was, we saw a lot of people in ministry always asking for support, raising support. And, we were young, and we were like, we don't want to live our whole lives asking for support, raising support. There's got to be a better way. So we started a company to basically fund the ministry. And, then we franchised it. And we had, some moderate success. We were one of the fastest growing franchises in the country in this particular asset class. And, and we were young, we were 21, 22, and we were living our dream out, though. We were funding the ministry, able to do that and still do the business. And so it was amazing. And it was an amazing experience, and I'm super thankful for that. And, that's really been the core of everything, I think, since then, is like, how can I build a business that can fund, ministry, can fund the gospel, can fund people that are going to go be missionaries, or fund church plants, or, and so even today, for me in real estate, it's like, how can I use the business I'm in full time to help fund, what I'm doing? And so, fast forward, that was 2000, I graduated college in 2006, 2022, since then I've started and done other businesses. One time I was a sports agent, we represented players in the NBA and overseas. And then I started really full-time real estate investing in 2013. We had started flipping in 2008, but I kind of full-time got into it in 2013. And it really went parallel with when I got serious with my wife, my now wife, and I wanted to travel less, be in Denver full-time. And, so now, I run a company, it's a multifamily, vertically integrated investment platform. We do property management, construction in-house. We buy distressed, like outdated buildings, Denver and Des Moines, and we renovate and bring them back to life. And then we either refinance or sell. And, so that's what we're doing at scale. And, that's kind of my story, high level.
Great. I love it, man. I feel like we are best friends already. I went to seminary in Littleton right after my undergrad. And so I made quite a few friends at Colorado Christian up there. Great area.
So you went to Denver Seminary?
I did.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
In Littleton.
Got it.
So you still live in Denver?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. And in 2008, were you in Denver flipping, or when did you get
We were
to Denver?
flipping. Yeah. So my college teammates, so I had started this company. It was a carpet cleaning company. We had franchised it. It was, it was growing pretty quickly, and we had some scale. So I had made a couple bucks, and I was like his first or second investor. We bought a house for like $60,000. Again, I had no idea about real estate. I just knew that it was a really profitable transaction. We could buy houses for 50 or 60, sell them for 90 in like 4 to 5 weeks. And back then it was just like paint and carpet. Right. And so I was like, oh, let's do more of that. So we ended up flipping, I don't know, 500 or 600 homes from 2008 to 14. But again, like, I didn't really understand real estate. I just understood that like there was a lot of opportunity and there was not a lot of capital chasing it. And we were able to round up a couple bucks at the time, not very much money, but like now looking back now, I mean, when there's no money anywhere, a couple $1 million goes a long way. And, so that was my start in real estate. I don't think I really started to really understand it and, kind of like the fundamentals of it until 2013 and 14, when I went off on my own. And now like it's more of a level playing field. Like people have capital, things are coming back. There's deals everywhere. And you really had to like build relationships and really figure out underwriting and execution and, what's a rent roll and what's a cap rate and, really start to educate yourself on the fundamentals of real estate. But yeah, I mean, we started doing more transactional type real estate business back in 2008.
I think it's funny you said that there was just in hindsight of today, there was a lot of opportunity and not a lot of money chasing it. Today, there is just money chasing every piece of dirt that could get its hands on.
Right.
And so the opportunity is limited. Okay, so you were doing that in 2008, and in 2013, you say you went full time. What did you go full time into? Flipping houses, or did you was multifamily involved then, or how did that transaction happen?
Yeah, so a little context, like going back to 2013, I had, the previous 5 years we had worked extremely hard. I mean, if you can imagine doing 100 on average, 100 flips a year, I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, you're just on that hamster wheel. And at the end of the day, maybe you'd have like a couple $1,000,000 split up amongst 3 or 4 partners. And then after taxes, you're left with not that much money. And so in 2013, I was like, well, I really want to be able to travel with my family. I really want to get married. I want to have a really healthy marriage. I want to be able to spend more time with her. I want to do like my passions with ministry and all these things. So what does that look like? So I started to look at, what does scale look like? What does it look like to have some, like, what if I work really hard today and then I have create something that pays me long term? And that's when I really started thinking about multifamily. And it really is just going back to my strength of, I understood how to renovate a home. I understood what people were looking for in a home. So then I thought I could just do basically 30 renovations on one address, buying an apartment building versus having 30 projects, around Denver or Des Moines. So that was really the genesis. I was like, how can I work really hard on something that'll pay me long term versus having to always be working hard and doing a lot of transactions? So I started buying like fourplexes back then, fourplexes, eightplexes in Denver. We were buying them then for like 80 to 100 a door. And we would put in like 10 to 15 to kitchens, bathrooms, the whole thing. And by the time we were done, we could sell them for, let's say, like 180, by 180 a door. Like within like 6 to 8 months, we would buy them, renovate the entire thing, clear the entire building, and then lease them up ourselves. And by the time we were leased up, we were like, okay, we'll refinance and go do the other one. But someone would come make us an offer and we could basically double or triple our equity. And we were like, oh, this is amazing. So we ended up selling out of a lot of those. But then what we were able to do is go buy in Des Moines, Iowa. So we would take that equity and let's say, between private money and our equity, we would have $500,000 to $1,000,000. We would go buy like a 30 or 40 or 50 unit building in Des Moines with that equity and a local bank. And then we would have even more scale, right? And so we did that, from 2013 to 2019 and built up a portfolio at one time in Des Moines of just ourselves with like no LPs, no outside investors, of like 500 doors between single family, some small multis, and then some larger like 100+ unit communities. And that's really where the light bulb went off. Like, you can make life-changing money, like net distributable cash flow, if you start buying larger buildings, right? And so I didn't totally understand that until I bought my first like 50 unit building. And like, once you had it stabilized, you're making like 10 to 15,000 a month after all the expenses. It's like, well, that's real money. You can like live off of that. And then, we bought a 100 unit building, and the average rents at the time maybe were 400, and now they're like 750, right? And it's like, man, that's real money. And so once I started to realize like, hey, if I just focus on larger deals, I can create like this stream of cash flow that's like irreplaceable, and it's going to give me the time that I'm looking for to really like live out my passions and my calling. And so that was really the light bulb of just seeing like every step of the way that, man, there's real cash flow, and then just thinking bigger and just focusing on what does that look like to structure and go after larger deals. And we kind of hit the market where multifamily was becoming really attractive. A lot of people were getting into it, a lot of capital. And so naturally it's gotten harder and harder and harder. But, I think it's just like any other industry. And I'm sure you can relate, Cameron, with, the things you're doing in real estate. It's like, even if there's a lot of capital, a lot of people, if you apply yourself and like really focus on the fundamentals, I think that there's always deals, really good deals to do.
It's amazing that you guys were not pulling any kind of investor capital in on these first, transactions in those, I guess, mid 2000, 10 years. Um, what you said you had some, I guess, some private equity, and then obviously your bank partners. At what point did you realize, okay, we can scale even further with other people's money and bring on LPs?
Yeah. Well, it was, so when 2013, I left the partnership that I had with my buddies with my, teammates. And I partnered with another guy from Colorado Christian that was much more analytical, very good with numbers, and really ran the back office. So in 2000, I think I had started doing stuff on my own. And then in 2014, he was in a transition. And I basically came to him and said, how you go to college and people, it's like, man, I could ever work with one person, that'd be a great partner for me. We complement each other. I trust him. He's really smart. He's good in the areas I'm not. So that was this gentleman. And so we had an epic run. He ran the back office. I ran everything out in the field and put the deals together. And he had a couple bucks. I had a couple bucks. And then we had maybe 3 or 4 people that would just lend us money at 8%. So no LPs, no legal docs, no sub docs. I mean, and speed was like one of our biggest assets then, and still is. But so that was how we were able to do it. So we were able to scale pretty quickly with our own capital and with some key private money, and then just having programmatic bank relationships. So we had a pretty simple capital stack, and it allowed us to scale really quickly. 2019 rolls around, and we had a really good run. And he was basically like, look, I just want to play golf, spend time with my family, really work on my marriage. And, he's really strong in his faith as well. And he was just like, look, I want to spend more time at home with my kids. And I was kind of at the point where the light bulb was going off, and I was starting to build like really deep relationships with brokers, lenders. I was starting to get approached by semi-institutional equity partners that were like, hey, look, we want to invest, like, let us into your deals. And they were seeing what we were doing. And so the timing was just right for me to say, I think I can take this a step further and really build some like generational wealth and really like change the trajectory of my family and my brothers and sisters and my children. And so that was really it for me. I was like, I really think that I'm being called to like double down and grow this. He was being called to like take a step back. And so when he came to me in 2019, I started to think, okay, to replace him, he was doing, in any startup, he was doing like 10 people's jobs, right? So I literally had to hire like 4 people to replace him. So that's when I started to think about, okay, I better figure out how to invest other people's money to pay for these people. I better start figuring out fees and what an LP is and what this structure looks like, so I can start to generate some revenue even while, because, when it's just you and your brother and a partner, like no one's taking a salary, right? We just live off the cash flow. And so we had no employees, we had people that, leasing and things like that, but it was no employees. And we were very lean and mean. And so that's when I had to pivot in 2019 and start thinking about hiring people, structuring deals with LPs. I had to really understand the legal document, just a full crash course in what it looks like to raise outside capital from LPs and have real, partners versus just like lenders. Prior to that, it was just lenders. And as long as I paid them off, they didn't care what happened with the property. And so that's how I got to basically where I'm at now, which is where, we kind of do a hybrid where some deals we'll just do our own capital, equity and debt. And then there's be some larger deals that we'll syndicate out. So that's kind of how I've gotten to that point. But it was, a pretty steep learning curve, as I'm sure in your journey. It's like when you go from your own capital or just like really close friends capital that are just lending you money to outside capital, and they're writing you $1 million, $2 million checks. I mean, you're held to a much higher standard in the care for the capital, the reporting, all these nuances of syndication I really had to learn.
Yeah, it's a lot of the crossing T's and dotting I's that no one, thinks is worthy for a LinkedIn post, that is really what demands the most attention from you and professionalism. Even in my journey, I've just learned, I really won't consider partnering with operators if the reporting is not good. Because I, as an LP as well, love getting really good updates, really great reporting, detailed things. And not everybody looks through that, but because I'm also an operator, I love to come through those numbers. And when they're pristine and right and consistently show up at the same time every month, that's a big win for me. And it speaks to the, professionalism of the operator. So you got this guy replaced, I assume them, right? You hired your 10 people you needed to?
I hired a couple people, hired the wrong people.
Oh man.
Very painful, very expensive. So then I did a crash course on like what it looks like to hire people. How do you hire and attract the right people? How do you interview people the right way? Gary Vee, who I follow pretty closely, his saying is, you hire slow, fire fast. And I really had to learn that, because I think intuitively as humans, we want to hire really fast and then fire slow because we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but you actually have to do the inverse. So it's been a painful process. I mean, we now have 50 employees and it's still very difficult. We still have made a bunch of mistakes. We continue to make mistakes on that. I don't think anyone really has a silver bullet when it comes to hiring the right people all the time, but we've definitely gotten better. One of the things that really helped was just clarifying the culture. So I had to, sit down and say, what are the 5 or 6 things that really defines me that I care about? And then let me put that into like a business plan, a purpose, a mission statement, a culture. And then now, we can filter everyone through, do you fit our culture? Are you these 5 or 6 things? And do you even belong in the room with us? And so that's really helped us. But, it's been very painful. I mean, it's a painful process, especially going through, you go through COVID, you go through, a lot of people not wanting to work. And so the labor pool, I think, got smaller and smaller. And, we are needing more and more people. Prices are going up and up. And so it's been, just so many challenges along the way, like most entrepreneurs. I have a question for you on, we talk about reporting. I think reporting is an interesting thing. So we can segue for a minute. I think this could be valuable for the listeners. But, if someone was to say to you, Cameron, I can put you with a group that's going to deliver 20 to 30% returns, double your money every 24 months, but the reporting is like maybe not 100% accurate and maybe not always on time? Or would you prefer the like 12 to 15%, but like the reporting is like on the hour, on the 15th day after the quarter ends, and it's like so precise and looks really good? I mean, because we come to this a lot because, we're pretty scrappy and we know how to create a lot of value in the field, but like sitting at a desk at a computer, typing out reports and having desktop, to me is like, it's been really hard for me because I know how I built my wealth, and it's like out in the field, not at a computer. So we always go back and forth, and we have some really analytical people in the office and they're like, oh, reporting. And then we have some other people that are like really good in the field, creating value. But what would you say? I mean, it's not like a perfect, obviously, math equation, but if you had to say which one do you, especially with the current economy, which one would you prefer to invest in?
That's a very hard question. I haven't been asked that. Would I rather make more money with bad reporting or, good reporting with less money? I don't know. At the end of the day, I want my money to make more money. But at the end of the day, too, as I see good reporting and I see very sophisticated updates, I see a company that's going to outlast a broken market. But when I see a company who's good at making high returns, but the back end sucks, I wouldn't bet on them to survive a down market. And so I'm going to invest long term with those who have their systems in place. That's just me personally, because I think that they'll be able to take care of my money much longer than those who don't button up the T's and I's. I don't know. That's just
totally.
That's where I land. But that's a great question. I've never been asked that question. If I ever come across that dilemma, I will let you know, and we'll do a little counsel session through it.
No, it's really interesting. I think just the idea is like, you look at publicly traded companies and they have to report every quarter, and they spend insane amounts of money right on this like team that all they do is crunch reports to deliver, and it has to be 100% accurate, and they have to be audited. But it's like, if you took that energy and those resources and applied it more to like maybe improving the factory or like the chip, to make it faster. And so it's that balance of like, at what point is too institutional hurting actual value creation, right? And that's something, I am not institutional. If I'm spending time at a computer other than talking to people like you, I'm losing, right? The highest and best use of my time is out in the field, meeting with contractors, brokers, bankers, and potential LPs, right? I need to be out in the field. I need to be with people. And then there's other people that are amazing at doing other things, very analytical, and their highest and best use is at a computer. And I just firmly believe that, and I do agree with you that systems and process have to be dialed in. But where I struggle is the value creation of lowering expenses on an apartment building, lowering expenses, raising rents, and keeping on budget in construction is really done in the field. And then, I want a team of people that can deliver that message accurately as possible without compromising returns, right? Without compromising returns. And I think speed in today's market is a really big thing. And so whenever you're focused on reporting at the sake of being able to, have speed with execution, speed to make offers, speed to close, because that's how we won. That's how we won disproportionately from 2013 to 19. And I think now entering this, space of like maybe more institutional type assets, like I do think that speed, with the right reins and the right focus is still an asset without compromising without compromising returns. So I don't know, that's just something that I struggle with because I meet with a lot of institutions and it's like, guys, do you want me to get you the best return or do you want the prettiest report? Because I can go hire a bunch of really smart MBA kids to give you the best report, but that's not going to get you the best return. You know what I mean? So but I do agree with you, systems and process. So anyways, just something that we always discuss internally. And I think is an interesting topic and just something to keep front of mind, right? Like reporting is important up until it sacrifices returns.
Great perspective. And every investor has a different appetite. They have a different
Yeah.
risk appetite. They have a different return appetite. They have a different operator appetite. And so it's just dependent on the investor and, identifying your avatar and making sure that you're aligning your company to fit what they want so that they'll write you the check at the end of the day.
That's
So
right.
let's talk about this real quick. I want to segue. You talked about the beginning, whenever you were playing basketball and getting to be overseas and do those really cool events with kiddos and professional teams, which just sounds awesome. You had a spark of, I guess, curiosity and wonder in you of how you could provide for this. So, and also seeing one of your partners kind of want to spend more time with family. Now you have a family as well. How have you, I guess, been able to, in the past or currently, kind of shape your business in a way that supports your desire to help people maximize the potential of their life, be it tenants, investors, family, because you have more time with them? I don't know. I just want to know, like, how does your business, if it does at all, affect the good that you want to make in people's lives on earth?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that I get from the New Testament is that, like you can't get to the end of your life and, you're in front of like your creator and him not say like, good done, good and faithful servant, well done, good and faithful servant. You know what I mean? Like it can't be in vain. If you're going to build wealth, but it's at the sacrifice of your relationship with your wife, your kids, and like sharing the gospel with people, then what have you really done? I mean, just for money is super empty, right? I mean, coming from sports, like I've been around owners of billionaires, multiple billionaires, around like spent a lot of time with them, and they're some of the most empty people in the world and some of the most lonely people. And so I really believe that like the Bible is so true when it comes to money. It's like it's more blessed to give than receive. And then the Bible talks about God. It's the only time He says, "Test me in this." Like if you give and you sow, like you're going to reap a harvest. And so, and it's not like you give because of that, it's just you give because that's what we feel like we're called to do. And we think that that's the right thing. Because at the end of the day, it's not ours, right? None of it's ours. Even like my name may be on title, right? And my bank account may say, but it's not mine, right? I'm called to be a steward of it. And a steward really means like, how can I use it to grow it so that I can expand and share the truth at scale more, right? And more effectively and, more regularly and all those things. So I just think, when we get into these talks, like I get asked all the time, like, oh, when are you done? When are you this? And it's like, I think that coming from a sports background, it'd be like someone asking Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or whoever your favorite athlete is like, when are you good enough? Like if you're really focused on being the best you can be, you're never like done. Life is a journey. We should always be trying to be better fathers, better husbands, better decision makers. Being in business is really just about making decisions. So it's like, how are you ever too good at making decisions? I don't think so. Are you ever too good of a father? And so, that's the way I view my life. Like, I want to continue to get better. I want to continue to find ways to improve and just to become the best at what, with what God's given me. And I think there's so many scriptures that back that up. I happen to live it in sports, right? I think one of the things that really cemented this for me was, I played high school basketball and like, every tournament or every season, like I would get to the end of the season and, I'd be ranked at a certain place and I'd kind of go into the offseason and feel like, man, I'm like one of the best players here around, but then when you go to college and I'm playing against guys from Dallas, Fort Worth and Houston, right? It's a much different thing, and I'm like, wow, I should have worked harder, right? I should have worked harder. Like I had 4 years that I basically did not maximize my potential. And I'll never forget, that feeling being a freshman of like, man, what did I do? You know what I mean? What have I been doing? Like there's all these kids outworking me way stronger, way faster. Like, and so I think that's one of the things that motivates me today is I don't want to get to the end of my life and be looking back when I'm in heaven, be like, man, I could have done so much more, right? With that time, with money and those things. And so I just think, building wealth is an amazing thing, and real estate's a great vehicle. But if building wealth doesn't improve your relationship with your wife, your children, and allow you to have amazing experiences with your family and friends, and to share the gospel and like help people grow, then I don't think building wealth is really worth it, right? Because outside of that, I don't see the point. I've been super poor, and then now I've had, much more resources than I ever could have imagined, and I've been everywhere in between, and I just don't see the point unless it's with that perspective, and so, and I think that's one of the three things I love about the Bible is the Bible is true. Like Solomon, all these guys in the Bible, like what they're saying is true, and they wrote it 2,000 years ago, right? And so to me, that's what motivates me. That's what I think the point of life is, period. And I think that's why I am really passionate about what I'm doing, and I want to be the best at it, and I want to get the best return for my, the money that God's given me and the money that people have trusted me with, so that they can do the same thing. And I think outside of that, I don't understand the purpose of wealth, of trying to pursue wealth, because outside of that, I think it's pretty empty.
Man, I love it. That's a great line, is if building wealth sacrifices your family, your marriage, your faith, then it's not worth it to build wealth.
Totally. It's a lot. Yeah.
And like you have met a lot of miserable and happy rich people and poor people. And
Right.
It's about this perspective of why we're here, what our purpose is, and can building wealth be a good tag team partner along the way to accomplishing God's will on this earth, and most certainly can in a lot of cases. I think you're a shining example of that. What's a way that you like to give back today in your life and your community?
So we moved into a new home 2020. We moved in. My wife was pregnant. We had a baby Noah. We had him in May of 2020. We moved into the house April of 2020. And our neighbor 2 houses down has become like a real champion of kind of like faith and generosity in my life. And he introduced me to this group in Denver called, it's like Shark Tank, but it's for churches. So like startup churches from around the country come to Denver one time a year. And, they're basically just like fundraising. And so I got connected with that, a year and a half ago or something. And what's been cool is I've been able to use my relationships in real estate, relationships with banks, to help multiple churches buy their first building. And, in Denver or like California or really expensive cities to live in that are unchurched. And Colorado, what's interesting is Denver is one of the most unchurched cities in the country. And so it's really, really hard for these startup churches to buy real estate, the liquidity, the banking, just access to the deals. And that's been one of the really amazing things. And our home church, we were able to help them buy their building during COVID, and the church is like quadrupled. Because what's amazing about churches is like once they have a building that's theirs, like their growth is exponential. It's not all about, growth, but it's like amazing to see more people wanting to come once you actually have a building. You're not meeting in like a high school auditorium. And, so I've been able to help, several churches do that, and, find the property, fund the property, negotiate the due diligence, and then do the renovation. And so, that to me has been like amazing. And I think being able to look back and, see multiple churches that we can go to and be like, man, we were like instrumental in this church, being able to get this building, I think is an amazing thing. And just a really, it's, I feel like it's kind of like my role maybe in the body of Christ is like, hey, if I can use, the platform and the relationships and my experience, because most pastors don't really understand how a real estate transaction works. And so me being able to come alongside them, and it's something I really enjoy and I can do relatively easily. And, so I think besides, I have a college teammate from JBU that I think is like the modern day Jim Elliott. And he was like the best basketball player. He comes from like a farm town in Arkansas called Hector, Arkansas. It's like 200 people, right? And he ended up being the best basketball player in the country. He broke like every record, even Division I, for 3-pointers made. And he gets done with his career. He played a little bit overseas, and he was like, man, I just want to be a missionary. And so he's a full-time missionary in Mali, Africa, Bamako, Mali, one of the most unchurched, one of the most Muslim places in the world. And he's there with his family. He's got 3 children. They're adopting their 4th. And, he's just like the stories that he tells me, so there's certain missionaries that we've been able to pour into and help and encourage and support. But, I just think, the church thing is really near and dear to my heart, because I'm able to use something that I do every day and then can go and like see the impact, 1 or 2 years later of like a congregation and, worship, and just the whole thing, has been really, really incredible. And I think it's been a cool testimony for my wife as well, because she's like, oh, wow, that's amazing that like, you know, because if someone asked her what her husband did, she wouldn't even know, but she can say like, oh yeah, we helped, you know, or my husband was helping, you know, has helped this church get this building. So I think that's been amazing and something I'm really passionate about and looking forward to helping other startup churches do in the future.
That's awesome, man. I love that heart and passion you have. We have a buddy in our Kingdom REI mastermind up in Nashville who likes to help people, specifically in the church, learn how to real estate invest for the first time or, second time and to do it long term. And so I love that you use those skills in your local church because, man, buying a building is hard. And if you've only been in ministry your entire life, you don't really know what you're doing as far as real estate goes. So
Right.
when the church members can come alongside and help facilitate that, all the more power.
Yeah.
Great stuff, man. Well, hey, how can people get in touch with you? If they want to know more about you, your story, or I want to ask you a question or two, how can they get in touch with you?
So I'm on Instagram at Terrance Doyle. I'm on LinkedIn at Terrance Doyle. I think that's the best way. We can put our website maybe in the show notes.
Yeah.
And I have a newsletter that I started a couple months ago, and I think maybe your audience would really enjoy it because I share a proverb, and I'm really big into golf now. So it's like a monthly tea time with Terrance. And basically I share a proverb and then I talk about what I'm learning and then a deal that I've done. And then basically a snapshot of my life, like some pictures from my phone or like, yeah, from my library, my photo library from that month. And it's pretty short, it's sweet. I think we've gotten some really good feedback in terms of just like the value from like a proverb and then relaying it to, everyday life. So believers, people that would, say that they follow Christ, I think subscribe and get a lot of value. And then people that maybe are in a different place spiritually have found it to be enjoyable as well. So I'd love to have your audience, if they're interested, to be able to sign up for that. So we can put a link maybe in the show notes for that as well.
Yeah. Is that in your website or you have it?
It's not in our website, but we can send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to send it. We'll be sure and put it in the show notes. So if you guys want to subscribe to that, feel free to look in the show notes of this episode and you can, find your way to get on that subscription and tea time with Terrell. Man, I love golf too. It's my favorite thing in the world. So it's exciting to have another brother in real estate loving golf.
That's right.
I had Ellis in Dallas recently. We played golf and had a good time. It was a little hot, a little windy. The course ate us alive, but hey, we had a good time.
Yeah, a lot of good golfers coming out of Dallas right now. Scheffler, Spieth. I mean, it's a hotbed right now.
Yeah, man. Dallas breeds them golfers, man. That's well, right. Hey, Terrance, appreciate your time coming on and telling your story, what you do, where you came from, what you're doing today, and how you're using the gifts God's given you and the passion to help his people on this earth and bring his kingdom on to this earth while we're here. So appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for tuning in this episode. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Cameron.